You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. Now, the largest new media platform on the web and your number one source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From Los Angeles, California, and Maria Menounos, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV Spotlight On. Spotlight On is a long-form interview series featuring actors and TV personalities. And now, from the world's number one TV after-show platform, this is AfterBuzz TV Spotlight On.
Hey guys, welcome to Spotlight On. I'm Kristin Carole, and today we have Alicia Witt, actress, singer, songwriter, director, writer. Like, what else can I add to there? Pianist, like professional that way. I'm so excited to have you on. Personally, I knew you like as soon as I heard Alicia Witt. I think 2 weeks notice.
Oh, thank you.
What do you get recognized the most for because of all these hats that you wear?
It is so all over the place. The question that I get asked, which I think a lot of actors get asked all the time, and it's the funniest thing, is, what have I seen you in? And I probably hear that twice a day. Mm-hmm. And I have, at this point, I've given up trying to guess what they've seen me in because it's so all over the place. And with repeats happening on television or on the internet now or Netflix, you just never know what it is somebody's seen you in. Anytime I try to guess, I'm always wrong. Yeah. And they're like, no, that's not it. What else have you been in?
Which one is your usual go-to? Because right now I would imagine it's probably Justified. But you have a different look than what you are on the show. But they have such a huge following.
It's interesting. I think that I'm finding that more people seem, at least now, to watch the show who might be based on the East Coast or the South. But in LA, it's still other things. I was in Costco the other day, and a guy recognized me from Justified. But a lot of people, I think, on the West Coast maybe wait for it to show up on Netflix to watch it. I'm not sure.
Definitely. How was it working on that? Because you came in, you were, the sister to Michael Rapaport.
Yeah.
How was it working on that show and coming in later on? Were you a fan of the show?
I had never seen the show before, and I asked Graham Yost, the creator, if he wanted me to catch up once I found out I was cast in it. And he kind of agreed with me that because Wendy Crowe had never seen the show and didn't know these characters, there wasn't any need for me to go back and see it. And I actually love working on shows in that way when I don't know anything about it. And it gives me a real, just a lack of expectation or familiarity with characters that my character's not supposed to know anyway.
So it makes it more authentic when you're in there.
Yeah.
You're learning as she's learning.
Exactly. I really became a big fan of the show, though, while I was making it. And now I've seen this whole season, and I'm going to go back and watch from the beginning because I think the writing is so incredible. And Tim Olyphant he's not only fantastic on this show as Raylan Givens, but he's so smart. He has so many ideas on the set. And when he suggests something, it's never from a place of ego or, some actors will come onto the set and want to take the best lines and all that kind of thing. But that's not where his ideas come from at all. It's always about making the show better. And I think he's usually right. It was a joy working with him. And Mike Rapaport. Oh.
So, such a great actor to work with.
Yeah.
You're saying he likes to improve the show and make it the best that he can. Does that mean that in the middle of a scene, he'll be like, you know what? I'm not sure I like this. And he'll, change things as he goes, or?
Yeah, Tim would do that. we'd get to shoot a scene sometimes, and he would say, "You know what? This isn't working. I don't feel like it's working." And then he'd sit down with the writers or whoever else was in the scene and just kind of sit in it and try and figure out what wasn't working, what could be made better. And I really enjoy working like that, because it feels like you're not just saying the words on the page. You're actually so invested in what your character would do at any given moment that it resonates for you if it isn't authentic.
How did it come up being on that show? Because I know like a lot of people who watch all the spotlights on like to know, how you got started and to be on such a big now cable show. What was that process like? I mean, you've been on so many shows though too.
Oh.
Go through like a huge list, and just the shows that you've been on too are just such high caliber. How do you get involved with that?
Every single one is different. With Justified, I'm not really sure how it came about, but that one I just got a call for. I got a call saying I was offered the part. And that does not happen all the time. It's almost like you build up, I believe in this almost cumulative effect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think I've ever actually auditioned for anyone associated with Justified before for a different job, but I've certainly auditioned for things I really wanted that I worked really hard for, and I didn't get the part for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And then it almost feels like all that work goes out into the universe, and then something comes along that you didn't audition for, that you would think you'd have to work really hard to get because it's that good. And this actually was like that for me. And it was also an experience where they didn't really know where Wendy was going to go at the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. They told me that she was going to be an important part of the season. But on Justified, they kind of work with you as they see where you're going. They give you more stuff to do, and it was really thrilling in that way to get the scripts each week and find that the character was deepening, and they are an amazing team of people that I think find what is working best for the actors that they have on board, and then writing for them, and as you grow, they grow your material. So especially that finale, when I got that script, I was just so grateful.
And they left it kind of open-ended even for your character. That's what I keep reading, is everybody kept asking you, are you going to come back? Are you going to come back? Are you going to come back?
Yeah, I don't know. They did say if you don't die on Justified, there's always a good chance you may show up. Mm-hmm. I haven't been told yet what they're thinking. They probably haven't even reconvened yet to think about what season 7 or season 6 is going to be.
They just ended like about 2 weeks ago, I think it was.
Yeah, the finale aired 2 weeks ago, and we shot that finale probably about 5 weeks ago now.
Okay, so it's pretty close to the turnaround for that.
Yeah.
Do you like, television has a lot faster turnaround. Do you like doing that compared to film? Because you do a lot of film, and I think that has an even further turnaround point.
Yeah, it does. It's really fun to watch the stuff that you filmed and to be able to remember distinctly what you felt like on that day and not have to wait to see if it turned out in the way that you're imagining in your head it's going to turn out. I mean, the turnaround time is very different, but when you're working on something as good as Justified, it feels creatively just the same as if you're making the best indie film. I think it's all about the characters and the writing and the other actors you get to work with and the directors. And especially now that people are watching things on Netflix and binge watching an entire season, it's really no different than doing a miniseries or doing a movie even. So
you started more in film and kind of have gone now back and forth between film and television. Tell us a little bit about your first experience, because you starred in David Lynch's done.
Yeah. I
So-
was in Dune at
Or
the
Dune,
age of
excuse me.
7.
It's a little early for me. I don't usually get up this early.
Yeah. I don't either. Yeah, that was another weird coincidence. I did audition for it, but I was living in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is where I'm from. And when I was 4 or 5, I was on That's Incredible. And that was a weird coincidence as well, but I ended up doing some Shakespeare on the show. And That's Incredible was this reality show that was on in the 80s, where people would do things like lie on beds of nails or be contortionists or
I gotta check
just
this
do
out.
incredible things. Yeah, it was a neat show. And then they started having children on it as well who could do things that were determined to be unusual. So anyway, I did that show. I didn't think very much more about it. And then 2 years after it aired, the casting director for Dune saw it being repeated. And she was looking specifically for a little girl that could act like she had all of this knowledge, because Dune was a science fiction film, and the character I played was born with the knowledge of generations of Reverend Mothers before her. So she was a bit of a freaky child. And the casting director was having a hard time finding a little girl who could say big words like that and act like
And then when they saw you do Shakespeare,
yeah, she
like,
thought,
this girl has
maybe.
it.
So they flew us to New York, and my family and I went and auditioned for David Lynch, and I got the part.
And he liked you enough to put you in 2 other projects as well. How was it working with him? Do you still keep up with him because it started such a young age?
I see him sometimes. I went to one of his art shows a few years ago, and I was just at there was a transcendental meditation event honoring Ringo Starr that my boyfriend played at, and so I saw him there. But yeah, whenever I see him or talk to him, it's always just that he'll always look to me exactly the same as he did when I was 7. It's like when you see a relative who you're really
Family,
close to,
friends,
or
and
you can't.
You grow up
It's like
with
you
them.
see your parents. Not that I think of David Lynch as my parent or something, but just you can't really see that your parents are getting older because you know them so well. I feel the same way about David Lynch, if that makes sense.
Like you picture him the first day that
Yes,
I do that with my
always.
family, like all the time too, like, or even just friends, like brothers, like my best friend. I'm like, your brother's so tall now, like he shouldn't be. Like I just picture him that way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah. So doing that and getting into it, what drew you to this at a young age? Because your family is not in the entertainment business.
No, they are. My dad was a teacher for 35 years before he retired. He taught science in junior high school in Worcester. And my mom had been a reading specialist before she had kids. My brother and I were taught at home. So she stopped teaching once we were born. But I ended up, it's really because of Dune that I even thought acting was a possibility. And in many ways, that was the best first job you could hope for, because there were so many legendary actors at that time, like Jose Ferrer, for example, who were in that film. And these were people that my dad had grown up watching in movies. And
So
got
he's
a
kind of
chance-
pushing you, like, maybe I could go on the set with you, make sure it's okay.
Well, no, he was always there. He and my mom, they got to spend the whole summer in Mexico City while that film was being made. And it was the biggest budget film of all time in 1983. It was $70 million, I think.
Wow. And even adjusted for inflation, that's like a crazy amount of money
It's
for a film.
crazy, especially, as you said, when you think this was 1983. That would be a lot for a movie today.
Yeah.
But this was more expensive than Star Wars or anything that had been made up to that point. So it was an 8.5 month shoot. I was there for 3 months, and I only get born in the last quarter of the film. I think for my parents, though, to see that making movies was not only a plausible career, but that people who make movies are generally really nice, interesting, intelligent, good people. Their first introduction to it wasn't a bunch of, I don't know,
The
20-something
stereotype,
party hopping
that you really think
people.
about, because you're so down to earth too, and if starting at such a young age, I mean, you know, you see so many stars in Hollywood when they do that and grow up in the business that maybe they end up in rehab and all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like it's very grounding, and your parents, you know, kept a good eye on you and brought you up really well as well.
Oh, thanks. Well, I didn't do any more acting until I was 14. And but at that point, I'd been begging for years to move to LA.
Did you do theater? Well, you weren't in school. Did you do like a local community theater or anything like that during that time
No.
that kept your interest up?
No, I was doing a lot of piano. I was a classically trained pianist, so I started competing and spent a lot of my time in those early years doing piano competitions. But I realized pretty early on that I didn't want to be a concert pianist as a career. I was really interested in music, and I loved making up my own songs, and I knew I wanted to do that someday, but playing classical music wasn't something I wanted to tour the world doing. So once that became obvious, it was easier to go to LA and not continue studying as if I were going to do that.
I saw you on Craig Ferguson a few times, and I know you were talking about playing the piano and saying something about, because normally people tell you, like I played when I was younger, it was like, oh, because you have such like long fingers and hands that it's better, but you were saying that's not necessarily true. You're like,
No.
that doesn't make a difference. It's just kind of if you have it. And
I also think, though, when you play piano from a young age, your hands grow a different way. It's like if you grew up doing yoga or dance or something, your body is just going to be different as you
so you
develop.
teach your body how to
I think
work
so.
with it.
But I've seen amazing piano players who don't have a massive range, or you wouldn't think they did, and then their fingers just move in that way. But I think piano players' hands just tend to be a little more muscular and more stretchy. You get used to that.
So you still keep up with playing, right?
Oh,
a lot,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
because your boyfriend's a musician.
He is.
Do you guys? I feel like I picture you guys just singing in the middle of the house.
Yeah,
do
we
you guys
do
do that kind of stuff? Break out into song.
It's usually very silly songs that nobody wants to hear.
What's
But
your
yes,
What's
we
your
do
guilty
that.
pleasure?
Or we'll sit down at the piano and make up random stuff and just go off on it. That's fun.
Which one? I feel like because I played a little bit when I was younger. My go-to was like I love Phantom of the Opera. Like I had to play Phantom of the Opera songs. What's your go-to piano? Like when you're there, what's something that you can just close your eyes and play?
I love Liebestrom. It's a classical piece by Liszt, and I played it at the end credits of a film called Liebestrom that Mike Figgis directed when I was 15. And that piece, whenever I'm at a new piano and I want to really see how it plays, that's my go-to piece. It's just so incredibly beautiful and passionate and just fun to play. But I write my own songs and I release albums and play gigs. So a lot of times when I'm sitting at a new piano, I'll just start making up a new song. Different pianos inspire me different ways, different rooms.
That's really cool. And you were saying, so you finally convinced your family to move to LA. How did that go about? Because I know, again, a lot of people, they're kind of scared to make that huge jump to go somewhere else. How did you convince your family that that was something to do?
I'm trying to remember how I convinced them. My mom was excited about the move as well, to experience something new. And so that helped. And we moved out together for about 6 or 7 months when I was 14. And then we had to go back to Massachusetts for about a year, and then moved out and didn't return in '92, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was when I started playing at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel for a living. That was my day job.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 2.5 years. Yeah, I started when I was 16, and I was able to play mostly at nights. So I'd spend my days taking the bus to auditions, and barely making it back to the Beverly Wilshire on time to start my gig. I still have a recurring nightmare that I'm late because they...
Or we just wake up screaming like, I can make it on the bus.
Or I'll dream that I fell asleep in the employee cafeteria on my break, because they were so strict at the Beverly Wilshire about the pianists showing up on time. If I walked in 1 minute after 4 when my gig was supposed to start, or 6:02 if I had a 6 to 11 shift, they would give me the evil eye. I would know I was in trouble.
Do you still go back
and they had a dress code
occasionally?
as well. I had to wear
really?
black. I had a series of 3 black dresses I would alternate between. I remember one time I showed up and I was coming from my day of auditions, and I had only sneakers with me. I'd forgotten my heels. And this really nice lady behind the front desk, I came to her in a panic and asked what to do, and she lent me her shoes for the day because she was about to go home.
And it's not like a good area to go buy a pair of shoes.
Yeah,
unless you want to spend like $1,000.
Well, I couldn't anyway. This was like 3:52, and I was supposed to start at 4, so I would have been fired.
Oh my goodness. What so when you came out here, you've had, I mean, I can't even list all the different films and famous actors. Probably one that stood out in my mind the most was 88 Minutes with Al Pacino.
Oh,
How
thanks.
was it working with him? I mean, when you go on to set, do you kind of have to prepare yourself like to not geek out?
The very first time I met him, I was pretty nervous. I auditioned a couple of times for the director for that one, and then the final 2 auditions I had were table reads with Al and with other actors, some of whom ended up in the movie and some of whom didn't. But so those first 2 table reads, I didn't yet have the part. And I was honestly thinking, okay, if I don't get this part, at least I'm going to get to say I did a table read with Al Pacino, who is one of my top 3 favorite actors of all time. He's been such a huge inspiration to me. His performance in Dog Day Afternoon changed my life. I watched it when I was 17, during that time when I had just moved out to LA, and I just thought that performance is everything I want to do. So to get to meet him, let alone do a couple of table reads with him, was already more than I could have hoped for. And from the first moment I shook his hand at that first table read, I wasn't nervous anymore. I stopped being nervous after I shook his hand because he is so unassuming. He's still this legendary actor, but he doesn't conduct himself in the way that some actors of that caliber might.
Like who? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you know.
I'm teasing.
And truthfully, it's usually people who aren't of that caliber who act like that. That sort of attitude that makes you feel like you're supposed to be uncomfortable in front of them. But Al just acts like an actor. He had made a documentary about Salome a few years ago. I think it's come out. I'm not 100% sure. It should have if it hasn't. But it's very clear from watching that documentary that all he really wants is to do his work and be able to collaborate with people. This was so apparent at the table read. He was just like one of the actors. And then when I did get the part, the next time I saw him was at his house for another working session with the director and the actors that had been cast at that point. And he answered the door in his underwear, and he was getting an exam for the movie, and he was like, "Hey, come on in."
You almost
And
have to
it
feel
just-
comfortable at that point.
Oh yeah, he's just so he's so unassuming. And every week on the set of 88 Minutes, he would take the cast who were working that next week and the director out to a big Italian dinner. And we would sit there in this private room and work on the script and work on the scenes we were doing that week. And I think that says so much about who he is, because 88 Minutes is a thriller. It's a very commercial sort of popcorn movie.
Yeah, psychological.
And yet he put so much into it. He cared so much about making even the smallest scene as good as it could be. It's not like he would ever think of just showing up for the paycheck and phoning it in because he knows it's not going to be his most legendary performance. He still wanted it to be everything that it could be. And so I found myself just loving spending time with him so much and getting to know him as the person that he is. I remember going to do ADR the first time after the movie had been long filmed, and seeing myself on screen with Al Pacino. I was like, what? Huh? Did I do that? It's almost like I forgot while I was working with him who he was, because I knew him.
Well, you see him on the screen, and that's where his presence, lies.
Yeah.
So you've done, you've also worked with Sandra Bullock, Hugh Grant. I mean, just so many names. Who was the biggest jokester on any of those sets? Who stood out as somebody that liked to play around?
Well, Hugh certainly had no end of fun teasing me because I'm a terrible tennis player, and there's that
Yeah,
scene
you had
in
that
movie.
scene. You go up against Sandra Bullock.
Well, Sandy was an amazing tennis player, and she, like me, had never picked up a racket before, but she just took to it. She's one of those
What
people
can't she do?
who pick up a racket, and she was amazing at tennis. And she didn't even know she was amazing. I mean, she just was.
She practiced on the side, I'm
Maybe
sure.
she
She's
did.
like, guys, I've never done this before. You
Yeah.
got hustled.
Yeah, she probably hustled. But Hugh, being British, like most British people, is insanely good at tennis and very well learned about it. And I was supposed to be his doubles partner. And in our first practice session, which was 2 months before we actually were going to shoot the tennis scene, we did a sort of test match to demonstrate where our skill level lied. And he was hitting serves that were so fast, there was no way I would have been able to hit them, and he would be like, oh, that's rubbish. And so I was so bad that even though I was his doubles partner at that first game, he was racing all over the court, hitting all the shots I was supposed to be hitting because I just was missing them.
Yeah.
So then every single time I saw him on the set, and I should add, they were giving me tennis lessons twice a week to try and get me to be adequate for that big tennis scene that was coming up. So he would ask me in between takes, show me your forehand, show me your backhand. And I would demonstrate it, and he'd say, I'd give that about a 2. 2 out of 10.
So now do you stay away from tennis? Just like, oh, I can't touch that.
I played it for a while afterwards because I did get to know a little bit how to play, but I haven't played now in years. I'd be up for trying it again. It's really fun, at least if you're playing with somebody at a somewhat equal lack of skill level, such as me.
I heard one of your hardest films otherwise was Urban Legend,
Yeah.
which my friend Megan, who helped get the interview, that's how she knew you. She's like, oh, Urban Legend, like you have to ask about that film.
Oh, thank you.
So she's big now.
Yeah, it was hard for a number of reasons. One of which was that my character is constantly running in the rain at night. And that's just a logistical difficulty.
Try not to slip.
Well, just being cold. My main memory from that movie is being cold and wet, because even if I wasn't shooting outside. If it was an indoor scene, my character was usually supposed to have been coming in from the rain. So they would hose me down, literally with a hose, before I went into the scene. So the other actor would be standing in there completely normal and warm, and I'd be running in. And also I had to be out of breath all the time. So I'd be standing there drenched, wearing this coat that just absorbed the water, and high heel boots and jeans, completely soaked, running in place to try and be out of breath when I walked into the scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was, and that movie came out so fast after we filmed it too.
Mm-hmm.
So the other strange thing about it was just that we were all kind of around the same age, and it was the first time I'd worked on a set with so many people that were my peers like that. And I really enjoyed hanging out with them, but they got to know each other so much better than I got to know any of them, just because I was the one that was trying to save everybody from getting killed, and then they were getting killed during the course of the movie. So if we were shooting a scene where somebody had already died, they would have time to go hang out with everybody.
Yeah.
I'd hang out with them on the weekend. This is great
because I lived, but on the other hand, maybe I should have died.
Yeah. It was a lot of hard work. I'm really, really glad I did it, but I also was scared most of the time, because having to act out these terrifying things happening to you, at least for me, I found myself going home to the apartment in Vancouver that I was staying in and checking all the closets and checking under the beds and
buy like a taser just in case.
I was just paranoid. I had spent the day jumping and screaming and getting scared or telling somebody about the impending danger. And yeah, that was my horror movie experience.
Now, out of that, you've done so much. Like you said, you even did, you did theater a little bit later, doing Shakespeare, and you do music. Which one right now, because I'm sure it's great being able to do everything, which one are you going to focus on coming up?
It's hard to say. I have an album that is almost completely done, and I'm really excited about this one. I haven't yet worked with a music manager, a booking agent, a music label, or anything like that. I've managed my own music career up until now.
I feel like a lot of artists are even moving to that, because you can just put stuff on iTunes.
Yeah.
And that's how it gets spread out so quickly.
I may end up doing that again, as I've done with the previous releases. But
'cause you had a lot of singles.
Yeah, I've released a lot of singles lately. I have a live album that was crowdfunded, called Live at Rockwood. And then before that, I released a self-titled EP that was a studio recording. But yeah, this one is, I think, it's certainly the best produced, I would say. And Ben Folds produced it.
There you go.
He's worked with Sarah Bareilles and Amanda Palmer and William Shatner, and
You guys have collaborated, before too, for a couple, like a movie soundtrack as well.
Yes, we co-wrote and performed the end credits song to Cold Turkey, which was a film that I was in with Peter Bogdanovich last year. So, yeah, but all that just to say, I'm trying to figure out how to juggle focusing on that and releasing it in whatever the right way is, while I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next with acting. And so far it's worked out really well. I'll schedule a tour, and then I'll get a job that starts right at the end of that tour, or right at the beginning, or ends right at the beginning of the tour. But I know it's going to conflict at some point, and then I'll just have to cross that bridge when I get to it.
Yeah, see what the opportunity is and kind of figure it out from there. We do have to wrap up pretty, which I'm sad because I had so many questions for you. But I think one of the No, I had like fun ones too.
Oh, can we ask them really fast?
Yes. I want to
answer
know
them fast.
your Instagram and Twitter. I always see you photobombing people.
I like photobombing.
Do you
people.
like kind of watch to see who's doing a selfie? And you're kind of like, hey.
Yeah. Like the one with Ben and Bob Saget last week
Yeah, I
for
saw
Bob's
that one.
book, his book speech thing. Yeah, I saw that photo taking place, and I just crept up behind them and did it so fast that they didn't really know it was happening until later. Yeah, that's really fun to do.
And then you've never dyed your hair.
No.
So it's all because it's funny because it looks different in different films as well. Is that just good lighting? Or?
I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
People will say things like, "Oh, you were blonde in Friday Night Lights." I'm like, "No, I wasn't." It's definitely gotten a little, I think, less orange since I've gotten older. I think when I was really little, it was a little more fiery colored. But yeah, I've never colored it. I did pink, but it was all washout for cold turkey.
Okay.
And I mean, yeah, nowadays you can just get that spray at Rite Aid and
Yeah, you don't have to do anything technical.
no, then it washes right out. So
And speaking of hair,
yeah.
I know people have asked you this. Your mom is in the Guinness Book of World Records
Yeah.
for longest hair. Has she cut her hair?
She has not cut her hair.
Like not even like like I go in like I'm trying to get my hair a little bit longer, but I'm always like, oh, gotta do like the split ends and stuff like that.
I don't know. I mean, as you can see, I just recently cut
Yeah,
my
you just-
hair. I love cutting it and changing it.
It
up.
looks so cute. The bob is in, like the bob look.
Thanks. I just love how easy it is to take care of.
Did you find at first when you did that, you're like, where did it go? Like I always feel like I'm washing my hair and it's like there's something missing.
Yeah, the first few mornings waking up, I would sort of go like that and I'd be like, where's my hair? But it was a good feeling. It was just remembering and then being excited about it. I had wanted to cut it for a while, and then when I got Justified, I figured, especially with all that Wendy's going through, it wasn't the right time for her to get a haircut, because that would be the last thing she was thinking of, dealing with her
Her hair.
brother and all her son and all that crap. So she needed to focus on life. But then as soon as I was done shooting, I cut it off.
And I saw on your Twitter as well, you're a big Mad Men fan.
Love Mad Men.
Who's your favorite character on that show? Would you want to guest star at some point?
Yes,
Well,
I want
guess
to
it's
so
a little
badly.
Bit,
They're
it's a little
still
bit late for that, right?
shooting.
Yeah.
There's still a glimmer of a chance, but I don't
So
know
Mad
if there's
Men,
a
get
part.
Alicia on.
Oh, please. I'll do anything. I'll just walk through the background. I'll photobomb you.
Yeah, exactly.
I know they didn't have photobombs in the 60s, but I
You could start that trend,
pop in
with
the
the
window,
huge
like-
cameras. Like Don Draper, what's going on?
I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite character. I love Don Draper, and it's hard not to. But Peggy, Peggy is so great. I think maybe if I had to pick a favorite girl, it would maybe be Peggy, just because she's everything at once. She's
So, like, she started from just the bottom and then made it all the way to the top. I'm still catching up on
Yeah.
season 6. I'm at the point where they had a little advertisement. They were going after the same ketchup brand. I was like,
oh yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
a great
I was
episode.
like, I love Don, but go Peggy.
I know.
Take him on.
I know, and she's still, even at this point, she's still getting her strength, and every season she gets a little stronger, but she's also really vulnerable still. She's amazing. Elizabeth Moss just crushes that role.
And AfterBuzz, we're all about television. What are your other, like, guilty pleasure TV shows? Or just stuff you're obsessed with.
Well-
Doesn't have to be guilty pleasure.
I do watch Nashville.
Nice.
It's and I know, I mean, I obviously it's the music angle, and I spend so much time in Nashville, and I love it there. But I guess I would qualify that as a little bit of a guilty pleasure, just because it's at the point now on that show where everyone has slept with everybody. So when I watch it, I feel a little bit like, oh gosh, this is a little.
You're like,
soapy,
maybe I
but-
shouldn't go into country. Or maybe.
Well, I love, though, that Scarlett on the show is now playing the piano, though. I don't know if you've been watching it, but
I don't,
she's
but I know
been-
of the show.
Yeah.
My side job is at E, so we cover like all the different
yeah, a
TV
storyline
shows.
a few weeks ago was that Scarlett started she kind of shocked everybody by sitting down at the piano and playing these amazing ballads, and they're not so country. They're a little bit more like what Sarah Bareilles would do in genre. So, but that's another show I would love to be on. That would be fun.
And I'll do the last question. What's the best advice that you've ever been given about, just pursuing your dreams in this field that's so difficult to get into?
I'm trying to remember if anyone told it to me. I think somebody did, and it's what I would say now to anyone asking, is just, if you can do anything else, then you should. But if you can't do anything else, you must pursue this. And you have to know that if you really want it that badly, it's what's meant for you as well. The work pays off. And if you believe that you're going to be successful, everybody else will end up believing that as well. You can't sit back and wait for the destiny to be created for you, though.
About going there and knowing and getting it.
If you get a massive break and you get lucky, which some people get incredibly lucky when they're starting out, or even somewhere in the middle of their career, they get an amazing part that is lucky. You still have to work incredibly hard to maintain that. And this is a business where you're never there. You never, ever get that one moment where you're done and you don't have to audition anymore. It just kind of doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You have to love it that much that you're willing to work your ass off. And you also have to believe in yourself. If you're ready to do that, then this is the right business for you.
Well, thank you so much, Alicia. Those are great words of wisdom, because it's so hard out here sometimes to keep motivation up. And it was so great to talk to you. Me too, as a fan of a lot of your movies and television shows. Oh, I was going to ask you about Two and a Half Men in the lap dance scene, because that went viral as well.
Yeah.
But just all of those. It's just amazing to meet you. So down to earth, and just, you guys check her out. Alicia, where can fans find you?
I'm on AliciaWittMusic.com, and then of course my Twitter is Alicia Witty. There's somebody whose name is actually Alicia Witt, spelled exactly the same way.
Oh, geez.
So I had to add the Y onto the end of it.
So they're an imposter. So don't follow that one.
Well, she's a midwife. Yeah. She's a real person, but she isn't me.
You'll get some different tweets following.
Yes.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Alicia. And thanks, you guys, for tuning in to Spotlight On. I'm your host, Kristin Carole. You can find me on Twitter at Kristin Carole 13. You can also find me at AfterBuzz. Right now I'm doing Turn and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.